Austria's national team are arguably the most no-nonsense name in international football. They are heading into the 2026 World Cup as one of the most quietly dangerous sides in the entire tournament. And I say quietly because that is exactly what this team has been. While everyone was talking about France, Argentina, Brazil, Austria were going about their business, topping a Euro 2024 group that contained France and the Netherlands, qualifying for the World Cup by winning 6 of 8 games, scoring 22 and conceding 4. And now they are in Group J at this summer's World Cup, with Argentina, with Algeria, with Jordan. There's a real chance at glory for Austria, but no one's talking about it. So let's do just that. This is why the 2026 Austria squad is not normal. To understand Austria right now, you have to understand the man running it. And to understand the man running it, you have to go back a little further than his press conferences. Ralf Rangnick is 67 years old. He has been coaching for more than 4 decades. He is the man who, at Hoffenheim, took a club from the 5th division of German football to the Bundesliga. He is the man who built the Red Bull football network, Salzburg, Leipzig, the whole global structure, and installed a pressing philosophy into it that shaped an entire generation of players. He is the godfather of gegenpressing, the man Klopp credits as a primary influence, the man Guardiola has referenced. And then Manchester United made him their interim manager in 2021, and we all sort of forgot what he actually was. But here is the thing about Rangnick at Manchester United. That was a caretaker role with a disinterested dressing room that had no interest in implementing a new philosophy for 6 months before a permanent manager arrived. That is not an environment where Rangnick could ever have succeeded. What he does requires time, buy-in, and players who have been built in his system. At Old Trafford, he had none of that. At Austria, he has had all of it. When Rangnick took the job in 2022, he was inheriting a squad that had already been deeply shaped by the Red Bull ecosystem. Sabitzer through Salzburg. Lehmer came through Salzburg. Seiwald came through Salzburg. Baumgartner came through Hoffenheim, the club Rangnick built. Xaver Schlager was developed in the same system. When Rangnick arrived in Vienna, he was not installing a foreign philosophy. He was reuniting with players who had been taught his language at youth level. They already spoke it. Marcel Sabitzer described the transformation in one line. Before we were a bit passive. Now everyone knows when we lose the ball, we have to switch and hunt it down. That is Rangnick's system in a sentence. Win the ball back within 5 seconds of losing it. Pressing coordinated bursts, triggered by specific moments. A heavy touch, a sideways pass, a goalkeeper with the ball at his feet. The press is not constant. It is structured, intelligent, and devastating when it fires. Austria usually play a 4-2-3-1. High defensive line, 2 holding midfielders protecting the back 4, a number 10 feeding off the striker, and wingers who press aggressively and look to run in behind when Austria win the ball. It is a system that requires enormous fitness, enormous trust between the players, and a shared understanding of when to press and when to hold. Rangnick has had 4 years to build that understanding, and the results speak for themselves. At Euro 2024, Austria topped Group D, the group that contained France and the Netherlands, 2 of the most powerful squads in the tournament. Austria beat the Dutch 3-2 in a performance that left the football world with its jaw on the floor. They only lost to France because of an own goal. One own goal in the most difficult group of the competition was the difference between a flawless group stage and a perfect one. They went out in the round of 16 to Turkey. It stung. But the foundation of what Rangnick had built was visible and real. And since Euro 2024, Austria have not gone backwards. They have gone forwards. Austria's path to this World Cup was straightforward without ever being easy. They were placed in Group H with Bosnia and Herzegovina, Romania, Cyprus, and San Marino. As the strongest team in the group by some distance, qualification was the expectation. How they qualified was the interesting part. Austria started their campaign with 5 wins from 5, including a 10-0 demolition of San Marino that is less impressive than it sounds, but still puts a nice number on the board. The one bump in the road was a last-minute defeat away to Romania that briefly gave the chasing pack some hope and gave Rangnick a reminder that his team could not afford to relax even in a comfortable group. They responded by winning their final 3 games, including a 2-1 victory over Romania in June 2025. Sabitzer scoring the decisive goal that sealed top spot and made the point clearly. When Austria need to show up, they show up. Over 8 games, they scored 22 goals and conceded 4, a goal difference of plus 18. No other team in UEFA qualifying, not England, not Spain, not France, had a better goal difference. 28 years since the last World Cup. 8 World Cup appearances in Austrian football history, the best of them a 3rd-place finish in 1954. The country had missed qualification in 2002, 2006, 2010, 2014, 2018, and 2022. 6 consecutive tournaments where Austria watched from home. The squad that Rangnick has built ended that streak, and it genuinely believes this is not just about showing up, it is about going further than Austria ever has. 14 of Austria's 26-man squad play in the German Bundesliga. 14. Bayern Munich, Borussia Dortmund, RB Leipzig, Werder Bremen, Wolfsburg. The spine of this Austria team is week in, week out Bundesliga. That is not a coincidence. That is the Red Bull pipeline producing results at a national level, and it gives Rangnick something very specific. When he calls a squad together, most of the players are already operating in the system he wants. The language is already there. Start with David Alaba, because Alaba is everything this Austria team represents in one player. He is 33 years old. He has won the Champions League 4 times, twice with Bayern Munich, twice with Real Madrid. He has been the best left back in the world. He has been one of the best central defenders in the world. He plays as a left center back in Rangnick's 4-man defense, and he gives the backline something you simply cannot buy: the composure of someone who has been in the biggest moments repeatedly and come out the other side. A long knee injury limited him at Real Madrid this past season, but he is fit, selected, and captaining this squad into the United States. Every time something complicated happens in the build-up, the ball finds David Alaba and slows down slightly. That is not an accident. Marcel Sabitzer is Austria's 2nd highest scorer ever, with 24 international goals from 95 caps. At Borussia Dortmund, he has become one of the Bundesliga's most complete midfielders, a player who covers enormous ground, creates chances, finishes himself, and does the defensive work that holds the press together. He is Rangnick's most trusted player in the squad, and the one who has been there through the entire transformation. When Austria need a big moment, Sabitzer tends to be involved. He scored the goal that secured qualification against Romania. He scored multiple times at Euro 2024. He is the heartbeat of this team in a way that does not always show up on a highlight reel. Konrad Laimer is the Austrian Footballer of the Year, now a Bundesliga champion with Bayern Munich, and arguably the most physically complete midfielder in this squad. He won 3 goals and 9 assists in the Bundesliga this season, and was central to Bayern's title win. His role in Rangnick's system is to be the engine, press triggers, ball recoveries, ground covered in both directions, at the kind of pace that makes central midfield opponents genuinely uncomfortable. He is the player who makes the press work because he is the one other players follow. Christoph Baumgartner at RB Leipzig is the player who gives Austria something different from everyone else in this squad. Where Sabitzer and Laimer are about intensity and power, Baumgartner is about intelligence and timing. He finds pockets of space between the lines that should not exist in a well-organized defense, receives on the half-turn, and connects play with a simplicity and accuracy that makes everything around him faster. He is the player who unlocks teams when the pressing does not work on its own. In qualifying, Austria's best attacks almost always ran through him at some point. Nicholas Seiwald and Xaver Schlager form the double pivot at the base of Rangnick's midfield, and this is where Austria are genuinely underrated. Both are at RB Leipzig. Both were developed in the Red Bull system. Both understand exactly what Rangnick wants from that position, protect the backline, receive quickly, and move the ball forward, and be the first line of the press when Austria lose possession. Seewald, in particular, has developed into one of the better young defensive midfielders in the Bundesliga. He does not make headlines, he makes space. Paul Wanner gives Austria a wild card that not many people outside Germany have noticed yet. He is 20 years old. He spent this season at PSV Eindhoven in the Eredivisie and was, by most accounts, one of the best young attacking midfielders in the competition. He committed his international future to Austria in 2025 after representing Germany at youth level, a decision that tells you something about how attractive this project has become. Rangnick does not select players to make up numbers. If Wanner is in the squad, it is because Rangnick genuinely believes he can contribute. And then there is the striker situation, which is the most fascinating tension point in this entire squad. Marko Arnautovic is 37 years old, playing at Red Star Belgrade in Serbia, and is Austria's all-time record holder in both caps, 132, and goals, 47. He scored 8 of Austria's 22 qualifying goals, including 4 in the 10-0 win over San Marino, which, again, is San Marino, but the man was clinical when it mattered throughout the campaign. This World Cup is almost certainly his last. He knows it, the squad knows it, the country knows it. And Rangnick, who had doubts about Arnautovic when he first took the job, Arnautovic himself admitted he was worried about how the new coach would use him, has built this attack around a 37-year-old target man, and it has worked. There is something genuinely emotional about watching a player of that age representing his country at a first World Cup, carrying the record books and the weight of a nation with him. Behind Arnautovic, Carne Chukwuemeka at Borussia Dortmund gives Austria something completely different, direct, explosive, capable of carrying the ball at pace and creating danger from wide areas. He has not yet won his first cap, but Rangnick selected him in the squad. That is the level of belief in his potential. Group J: Austria, Argentina, Algeria, Jordan. Austria open against Jordan on June 17th in Santa Clara. That is the game they must win, and probably will. Jordan are at their first World Cup and lack Austria's depth at every position. Algeria on June 27th in Kansas City is a match that could go either way. Algeria have quality in midfield and will be organized, compact, and difficult to break down. That is exactly the type of game that could trouble Austria, whose press works best against teams that want to play, not against teams that are happy to sit at 0-0 and absorb. And then there is the Argentina game, June 22nd in Arlington, Texas. The defending world champions, Lionel Messi, Julian Alvarez, Rodrigo de Paul, the most decorated squad at this World Cup. Most people see that fixture and immediately write Austria off. And to be fair, Argentina are extraordinary. But consider the matchup for a moment. Argentina like to have the ball. They like to control games through possession and individual quality. They do not always press high. They are more conservative than some think, using deep defensive blocks when needed, and attacking through individual moments of brilliance in the final third. Rangnick's Austria have spent 4 years preparing to hurt exactly that type of team. Sit compact, press in coordinated bursts when the trigger is right, and explode in transition. This is the playbook. Austria have run it against France. They have run it against the Netherlands. They beat the Dutch 3-2 at Euro 2024, a result that shocked the football world, using exactly that approach. The idea that they cannot do something similar against Argentina is comfortable wisdom, and Austria have spent 2 years turning comfortable wisdom into last-minute own goals. If Austria win Group J, and it is not impossible, they face the runner-up of Group Y, which contains Brazil, Canada, Ecuador, and Switzerland. Brazil as the Group 1 winner would set up a quarter-final against Austria in that scenario. And this is interesting because Brazil under Ancelotti are a team in transition, talented, but not yet operating with the same coherence that the great Brazilian sides managed. Austria would back themselves to make that difficult. But let's be honest about the limitations too, because any credible analysis has to be. Austria's depth up front is a real concern. If Arnautovic gets injured or runs out of steam, which at 37 is a genuine possibility across a long tournament, Rangnick's options at striker become significantly thinner. Grigoric and Kalajdzic give him cover, but neither has Arnautovic's experience or finishing record at international level. The other concern is what happens when the press breaks down. At Euro 2024, Turkey in the round of 16 managed to frustrate Austria's system by playing directly, winning second balls, and preventing Austria from finding the clean transitions they prefer. When the game becomes physical and messy, and the press has no clean trigger, Austria can look ordinary. The best teams at this World Cup will know that. They will try to make it ugly. And then there is the 28-year absence. Tournament experience matters more than most people acknowledge. Austria have a squad full of players with Bundesliga and Champions League experience, but none of them have ever played at a World Cup. The pressure of the biggest competition on earth in front of a global audience, with everything on the line, is something you can prepare for but cannot simulate. That is the unknown. Austria have not been to a World Cup in 28 years. Their best ever finish was third place in 1954. They are in a group with the defending champions, and they are going to that tournament with one of the most tactically coherent managers in world football, a squad built over 4 years in a single philosophy, 14 Bundesliga players who live and breathe elite football every week, a 37-year-old all-time record scorer who has waited his entire career for this moment, and a captain who has won 4 Champions Leagues and who brings a composure to this team that no other Austrian player could provide. What Rangnick has built is not a miracle. It is the logical result of time, philosophy, and the right players in the right system. Red Bull built the pipeline. Rangnick connected it to the national team. And 4 years after most people laughed at the idea of him managing Austria, after Manchester United, after the interim stigma, after the jokes, Austria are at a World Cup, and Rangnick looks like exactly what he always was. One of the most important football thinkers of the last 40 years. This Austria team is not normal. They probably will not win the World Cup, but they are genuinely capable of making it uncomfortable for some very big teams. And in a tournament full of obvious stories, Argentina's defense of the title, Brazil's search for redemption, France's perennial near misses, Austria might be the team you want to quietly keep an eye on. How far do you think Austria go? Let us know in the comments.